Okay? These are all standardized tests. Okay? And they use a norm referencing system. You can be in a certain percentage. Like the GRE, in fact, it's scored against other graduate students. So how you do is scored on a curve. And you can only get to a certain point value, depending on what the others scored, right? See what I'm saying? In a given year. But standards-based, those are standardized tests. But standards-based education is actually nothing to do with that. What standards-based education is you have an outcome that you want the students to hit. So let's say you're talking about language arts. We'll give a simple example. Right? We'll say, okay, the student is able to write a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, now a 5-paragraph essay is an essay that has a brief introduction, a thesis statement, or introduction of your topic, right? It has 3 paragraphs. Usually those paragraphs give you details. Each paragraph has some details that elaborate, that explain or prove the ideas in your thesis and in your introductory paragraph, right? They give you details about it. And then it has a conclusion where you say, okay, this is what I've shown, and maybe give a further example of where it might apply. That's a 5-paragraph essay, right? Now, your standards-based, say, might be that that would probably be about 7th grade, I would say, that every 7th grader is capable of writing a basic 5-paragraph essay. Now that's measurable. But the thing is, again, if you have 100 kids come into your school in kinder or 1st grade, all 100 of them can meet that standard. Does that make sense? There's no reason why every one of those 100 kids... Will it happen? I don't know. They may not. Just because they can do it doesn't mean they will do it. Standards-based doesn't say everybody passes. That's not what it says. Right? But if you create... You have an opportunity as a teacher or as a student that you can get there. Does that make sense? Okay? So you might say, well, what if the kid's special ed? Well, then you have modifications. Then you have a modified program. What if the kid's ESL? Then you may have modifications. There's possibilities for adjustments. But the idea is that with standards-based is there's no restriction that if you are in a certain percentage, or if you're in a certain gender group, or a certain racial group, or a certain height group, or whatever, that you can't make it. The system is supposed to be set up so that everybody can make it. Okay? So when you talk about standardized testing, it's different.
I know the difference. That wasn't my question. So my question was, we might be using standards-based education, but we still have to use norm-based assessment. So how do they fit in together? Because I believe in norm-based assessment.
Well, it depends on, again, it depends on what, again, everything has, there's 2 sides to everything. If you look at, for example, let me use sports as an example. You normally pick, if you're talking about skiing, okay, you're talking about downhill skiing, right? You put skis on your feet and you go down a hill. I know Thailand, you don't do much downhill skiing. But, okay, you can picture a mountain, right, with snow on it, okay, and you put these boards on your feet called skis, and you go down the hill. And if you're the fastest in your country, then you're going to get on the team and get a chance to win a gold medal, right? And they're going to pick the fastest guys. Even if some guy's a wonderful guy and he's a hard worker, they're going to test using this. Because only some people are going to get the chance to be on that team. I couldn't get on the team, I know. I can ski, but I can't go that fast. I mean, when I go fast, I usually fall, and I get hurt. Okay? So, I still try it, but I get hurt when I try it. And I wouldn't be able to make the team. But the point is this is what Mark's saying. That's going to happen. Right? And we can't, well, I'm not going to do it. We have to stop that. We can't stop it. That's part of the reality of the way the world works. However, is it appropriate with a kindergartner? Is it appropriate with a 1st grader? Is it appropriate anywhere in a public education system? Probably not. Okay? What we should be doing, we should be about creating opportunities for students to do the best they can. Right? And the other thing you got to remember is this. Remember the Terry O'Reilly example. If you streamed him, if you looked at Terry O'Reilly, he's the Boston Bruin guy, right? Remember? That made it to be a star, even though he did not have the talent. Okay? He became a pretty good hockey player. He did not do it on talent. He was never a great skater, was never a great puck handler, none of the things. But he made it to the top. If we used this system, when would we have stopped Terry O'Reilly from playing hockey? Think about it. Any ideas? When would we have stopped him? Yeah. Well, okay, well, let me get the question first. Okay, I want your question, but this is important. Because I want you to get the idea here. When would we have stopped him from playing hockey? Would we have waited till he was 30 and already playing for the Bruins, or 25? Would we have let him play that long? No. When would we probably have stopped him? First few times. We would see him on the ice and falling over. He couldn't skate like the other 5-year-olds. He doesn't have the ability to skate. He falls over all the time. Maybe he cries a little bit. So, you know what? He doesn't need to play hockey. Right? Now, that would have been a loss for everybody. A loss for Terry, a loss for his family, a loss for the fans in Boston, right? We don't know what... The thing is, I agree with Mark's point. When you get to be adults, you have to compete to a certain extent. Alright? That's the reality of it. But is competition appropriate with kids? Probably not. And I would add something else. If you think about it, there's much less competition in the workplace than we really want to admit. We tend to say, well, you know, competition, you know, I have to compete for that job. Maybe. But then let me ask you a question. So you look at the Graduate School of Education right now. So there's me, and there's our dean, Dr. Seingold, and there's Dr. Lipa, and there's Dr. Supit, okay, Dr. Nora, and let me see, Dr. Surapi, Dr. Watana. Have I missed anybody? I think I got everybody. Does anybody miss? Oh, yeah. Did I miss anybody? Is that the department? Right? So now, what's more important? We now have the job. Maybe there was competition before we got the job. But we're all working here now. Now, getting the job is 1%. 99% is doing it once you have it, right? Is it more, if I got to go out there and do my job, do you think I should try to beat on Dr. Lipa and find a way to steal her books so that she can't be effective? Or maybe I should, you know, oh, the dean, I got to make sure he doesn't get as much recognition as me, right? So maybe I should go and, you know, I don't know, mess up his computer program, right? I mean, what's more important now? Cooperation or competition? Cooperation. Cooperation, isn't it? I mean, and if you think about it, I mean, I got 2 brothers, 2 sons, or 2 brothers. I only have 1 brother. He's gone, unfortunately. But I got 2 sons. Obviously, they're brothers, little David and Derek. Okay? What's more important for me to teach them? How to cooperate with each other or how to compete? Of course. Of course, they're going to compete sometimes. You know, maybe when they get older, they'll compete for the same girl. Who knows? Right? Hopefully not. I don't want to be in the middle of it. Okay? But what do they need to be taught? Of course, as brothers, they need to learn how to get along. They need to learn how to play with the same toy at the same time sometimes. How to pass the toy to each other. At dinner time, they need to learn how to sit down together and eat together. Like, you know, if you look at it realistically, probably 95, maybe even higher, maybe 99% of life has to do with cooperation. Maybe 1 or 2% has to do with competition. Even sports, which is a massively competitive example, right? We know, but now think, okay, the Spanish just won the world champions, okay? They just won the World Cup, okay? Now, let me ask you a question. So they had to compete. They had to beat out those other teams to get there, to the final 64. Then they had to beat teams to get down to 32, again to get down to 16, and so on, right? They had to keep winning. We know that, right? So that was part of it, a big part of it. But what, I mean, like, getting to practice, you think they competed with each other on who gets to practice first? You think they competed with each other as to who scores even the most goals? I don't think so. Because if they fought over goals, are they going to win? No. They're too busy competing, right? So they have to cooperate with their coach. They have to cooperate with each other, right? If you think about it, you'll realize that there's way more cooperation, even in sports. And sports is one of the most competitive things in the world. Okay? Be careful, because we often compare, I use sports examples. Remember, we often compare education to sports. Okay? But education really isn't anything like sports, because it's even more cooperative, right? If you look at the objectives you're setting for your students, there's no reason why every student can't get there. Now, will it happen? It won't happen. Sometimes. Often it won't happen. But when it doesn't happen, here's what I challenge you to do. When it doesn't happen, it should never be because of you. If you give the student everything you can, if you encourage them, if you differentiate when they need it, if you give them... Now, can you always differentiate? No. But you do it as much as you can. If you give the student 100% of what you have, and they still don't do it, you've done what you can. That's not your fault. Right? But if they're not succeeding because we're causing them to fail, that's different. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so this model is I used to talk about something in my time in the military. I used to talk about programmed failure. Programmed failure, this is programmed failure. You design a system that guarantees failure. Guarantees it. This system guarantees failure, no matter what. Now, does this system guarantee success? No. No, it doesn't. But does it provide opportunities for everybody? If it's done right, it does. If it's done right, it does. That's really the difference. That's really what we're talking about. Okay? When you set up standards and you say, this is where I want you to get, and everybody can get there. Right? I remember, when I taught a leadership course when I was in the military. And it was a very, very difficult course. It was for people who were getting ready to be sergeants. Right? And to a certain extent, there's a certain amount of competition because not everybody gets to go on that course. And when they get on there, some of them aren't ready. They're not capable. And what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to go up to, say, eight people. A leader is a section leader has 8 or 9 people. So it's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe 9 people right here. And you have to have the confidence to be able to say, okay, everybody come in here, and you sit down and you do a task. And those 9 people have to work with you to get it done. You have to be able to build trust. You have to have the competence, the ability to plan something and get it done with those 8 or 9 people. You have to be able to, engage them, get them interested in what you're doing, get them communicating with you, right? You have to have a certain amount of physical strength because you may be out there doing it at 30 below zero when it's snowing and there's ice everywhere, right? And you may only have slept 3 hours the night before, so not everybody can do it, right? But what I used to do, and I did that course, I would teach it, it's about a 3-month course. And after the first 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks were very, very, very difficult, and we would lose some students. We would lose some students. I think I lost about 6 out of 30 students in the first 2 or 3 weeks. But I caught them all in a room after those 3 weeks, right? And I said, now, you guys that are left, there's like 24 out of 30 left. I said, you guys that are left, I said, you have to be a team now. Nobody goes home. I don't care how difficult it is. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care, except if somebody breaks their neck and they can't go on because they really have a broken neck. I said, okay. But I said, even a minor injury, right? I said, nobody goes home. From this day forward, you guys are all a team. You got to carry each other. If you see one guy struggling, the other ones, you pull him up or her up. You get him through, right? Because what you're doing then is you're saying, when you get to a certain point, you have to build cohesion in a team. And a classroom is the same way. My point being is that there may be